Hello my fellow Bereans, welcome back to our last video in this challenge. So last week we went over the New Testament and I'm curious how that went. Leave a comment either in this video or the last video. Maybe you had already learned them, so it's something that was familiar to you and you were just reviewing. Maybe you're gonna just cheer on the rest of the people as they're learning it, but that was the New Testament. And now we're gonna do the Old Testament, and that is more of a challenging one. And so when I was learning it, the way I did it is I separated it by sections, and then even within the sections, I was helping myself out with sectioning parts off. So the first thing I did was I learned the books of the law. Most of us know it starts with Genesis, Exodus, and it gets a little fuzzy here. So the first thing I memorized, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Just getting those 5 books of the law just put in my memory banks, practicing it. So as you're reciting these, then adding in these first books of the history, Joshua, Judges, Ruth. After Deuteronomy, Moses dies and Joshua takes over. So that's the next book. And then once they got into the promised land, then we have Judges, where the people had spread out to their different areas and there wasn't a king. God was supposed to be their king, and instead there were judges that were put over the people. So we have Joshua, Judges, and then Ruth is the last book in that section, and think of her as the grandmother of King David. So it's the last part of that history before we get into all the kings. So we have Joshua, Judges, Ruth, and just remember that follows Deuteronomy. And then we have the 1st and 2nd right together. So we have 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles. So we need to remember that that comes right after Ruth. So these are those histories. So practice that. Just keep adding sections as you go. After 1st and 2nd Chronicles, it's Ezra, Nehemiah, and Esther. Then we get into poetry section, and we have Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon. Those are together right after Esther. And so I memorized those as a chunk. And again, what I would do is just keep adding sections to the section I had learned previously. There's no timeline on this. It's just as you feel comfortable, add in this next section. So it might be that you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days of adding sections. That might be how it works for you. Some of them might be easier, like you might already know these sections, and so you're just adding on some other sections. And then I have the major prophets that come after Song of Solomon. One of the things that I can struggle here for some reason is Ezekiel and Ecclesiastes, and I just need to remember that Ecclesiastes is one that goes along with Solomon. So like Solomon wrote most of Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon, just trying to put those in my head. And so we have these major prophets, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, Ezekiel, and Daniel, and they're major because of the size of the book, not because of the importance. And then we get to the minor prophets. We have Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, so memorizing that section, and then Jonah, Micah, Nahum. It's kind of funny because I might be looking for Nahum and then what pops into my head is Jonah, Micah, Nahum. Or I might be in the book of Amos and the rhythm just comes to me and I'll find the book that I'm looking for that way. And then we end with these tricky books in my mind because Habakkuk is so similar to Haggai, and Zephaniah and Zechariah, remembering which one is first. It's just a matter of memorizing. And then Malachi is the book right before Matthew. So that is the Old Testament. So that is the end of this challenge. And again, if you're taking part in it, go ahead and let everyone know by hitting the like on this, and then we can see how many people are taking part in the challenge. And then leave a comment how you're doing. And then at the end of next week, leave another comment how it's going until you finished it, and then you can celebrate that you have finished all the books of the Old Testament. So until next time, be well and God bless.